It is good to worship, to spend time with Jesus above all things. Jesus is the only one who can heal us when we're hurt. We can do temporary Band-Aids. Those are kind of nice when you're bleeding to keep you from getting stuff all over the floor and all over the kitchen sink. But, it takes that Jesus to heal us when we're hurting and wounded. And remember, that's the enemy's job. It's his purpose is to seek to kill and to steal and destroy everything in our lives. So we come to him thankful and grateful for all that he's done. Now, the last time I was here, I talked about the Good Samaritan and how we should respond when we see our brother who is hurting and wounded and left alongside the road. Our neighbors who are struggling and who are suffering. But what the church typically does is we will have prayer requests in the form of gossip that we will share with each other. And what I challenged us last time to do is actually get down and find out what's going on with your brother or sister. Actually get to know them and love them and care for them. And this week I'm doing the sequel to that, talking about how we should respond to God's love to us. And he demonstrated his love by dying on the cross. Now, most of you won't know this, but my middle name is John. And the reason my middle name is John is that during the Korean conflict in 1951, my grandfather was in the Chosin Valley. And the Chinese threw a hand grenade in the direction of my grandfather. And a man by the name of John threw his body on top of that grenade, saving my grandfather's life. And without him, my father never would have been born, and then obviously me. And so my father's name is John, my name is John. But I will share the impact this had on my grandfather beyond just a name. My grandfather decided to live his life in a way that would honor his sacrifice. Now, in the same way, we look at Jesus. He chose to die on the cross. When I see the cross, I remember Jesus died on that cross for me. He threw himself on that grenade and saved my life, saved my soul, gave me hope and opportunity. So today we're going to take a look at Matthew chapter 25 and to look at it in the light of how should we respond to the fact that Jesus died on the cross for us. Remember the good works, the good things we do? They're not for salvation. They're a response to that salvation. Something that happens within us. So Matthew chapter 25, starting at verse 31. But when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. And all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one another, as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" And the king will answer and say to them, "Truly, I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me." This is the response to the man or woman that loves Jesus, those who recognize his sacrifice on the cross. When you see someone is hungry, you give them something to eat. And this is one of the things that we do at Gospel Rescue Mission. You can come at 7, noon, or 5 and get a meal. You could take care of that physical hunger. But if that was what we were going to do, it might be temporary. I'll share with you an honest confession. My greatest fear is that we're going to feed everyone in Muskogee, and most of them that we feed are going to go to hell. That terrifies me. I would hate for them to go to hell with a full belly. I'd rather them be a little hungry and hear the truth and come to know Jesus and get to heaven on an empty belly where they'll get filled even better. So we temporarily might feed them physical food, but we challenge them when they come in. Now, we want to serve meals to those who have a pay stub. You're part of the working poor. We're going to feed you. You are part of a program trying to enhance your life. You're part of Bridges Out of Poverty or one of our employment programs or our felon program. You're part of one of those. We want to lift you up. We want to feed you and take care of you if you're trying to do better with your life. We want to feed your soul, your whole being, your whole person. And the same thing is true if you want a food basket. We have food baskets we hand out, and we're going to feed your soul as we're giving you that food basket. And we want to encourage you and help you to grow, become all that God designed and wired you to be. Most of the men and women of God I know don't lift up to what God has designed for us. We get distracted. We get into the temporary. So we feed the hungry. I was thirsty, and you gave me to drink. Now, we do have water. If you come to our meals, we will have some beverages there. You won't go away thirsty. But I think it's so much more than that, is that we want to quench your desire for new life. Many of the men and women we serve are coming in with felonies. There's many in our community who have felonies on their record. And they feel hopeless. Now, many years ago now, I came out of the Army and I thought, boy, life's going to be pretty easy when I get back to the States. I'm going to come back. I've got experience. I've got a college education. I can do this. It's going to be easy. And you know, I applied for over 100 jobs a week for 3 months and didn't get a job. I didn't get an interview. And I didn't have any felonies on my record. I didn't have any strikes. My name hadn't been in the newspaper as a criminal of some type. I didn't have any of those things coming against me, and it was hard for me. And so I have an easy time trying to imagine these men and women who come in and they did something wrong, sometimes 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And this label is stuck on them. So when they apply for a job, they say, oh, you got this on your record. I noticed you checked this box. And then it gets filed in the trash can. And they see it happen with their own eyes. Most aren't even willing to wait for them to leave the room before they throw it away. See, at least if I was going to do it, I at least would wait till they were gone. But most of them are seeing it happen right before them. They are thirsty for an opportunity to get their life back. So we have our felon reintegration program that we have. You can go on our website, grmmuskogee.org, see the details. But we want to help people get their life back. We want to help them get jobs, get a place to stay, and get insurance. Many of these with felonies end up driving without insurance because they can't afford insurance. We want to quench that thirst, that hope to get it back to normal, what we consider normal in our lives. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. This is our shelter program. And we want to see people succeed there, so we have them come in. If you get a job while you're staying with us, we want you to fill out this worksheet we got. It's going to help you to stay for as long as you need to save up a 2-month buffer. We don't want you to leave with debt. We don't want you to leave and have to come back in 3 months. We want you to save up. And you had one gal who left, and she got it was seasonal at the time. She was working at Walmart, and she was working a lot of hours. It was Thanksgiving, Christmas time, and she was feeling pretty good and moved out. But she had saved up this 2-month buffer before she left. And January they cut her hours down. Now, if she hadn't saved up that buffer, she would have been right back at the mission. But because she saved up that buffer, she had no problem. She was able to make it last until the seasonal times came back up in the spring. See, that's what we want them to do, is to succeed. Now, those who don't have a job, we have a life skills program, online classes. It's open to the entire community, free to our guests, but anybody can take it. You can see it on our website. And you can go on there and you can take these classes. Goal setting, money management, how to think through life, how to know who Jesus is. I was raised in a community that even though I wasn't a Christian, I knew a lot about Jesus. I knew basic stories. I knew about Noah and his ark, and I knew about David and Goliath and Jonah and all those. I knew about all those. But the people I work with today don't even know that the book of Acts is a book within the Bible. They don't even realize that there's just so little biblical knowledge out there. So these classes will help give them some of those basics, some of that basic knowledge to get them maybe to a place where they can understand who Jesus is. And if they do that, they get another 3-week stay, get more classes, more opportunities to learn, more opportunities to grow. And then another 3 weeks. They could stay 12 weeks. And I'll tell you, the hardest thing is to wait 12 weeks. And they go through these classes, and they still don't want to be part of the everyday society. They're hoping Uncle Sam will come through for them. And unfortunately, Uncle Sam usually takes longer than 12 weeks. We don't want you to trust in the government. We want you to trust in Jesus to provide for you. And Jesus has a real tough time driving a parked car. So we need to be out active, participating in what God wants us to do. Looking where he is working and go join him. In fact, that's all Jesus really does throughout the gospel. He says, I'm looking to where the Father's working, and I'm going and doing that. And that's what we're encouraging our men and women to do when they come to the mission, part of our shelter program. I was naked, and you clothed me. Now, fortunately, we've had very few who have come to this mission literally naked. I'm pretty excited over that we usually have something on, and I'm praising God. However, when people go to job interviews, they don't always have the right clothing to go to those job interviews. Sometimes they get a job, and they don't have the right outfits to wear for that job. Some say you have to wear dark pants, or you have to wear khaki pants, or you have to have boots, different things that come requirements. So we make sure they get those clothing. We have a clothing room for men, a clothing room for women. And every Thursday at our community meeting, it's called Dress for Success Thursday. And we have this clothing out here, and we say, okay, you guys put this stuff on, you're going to wear it, look nice. And it changes everything within them. And it's a sad state of affairs, but it's really the truth that the way you dress impacts the way people treat you. Now, several years ago, I had a fireplace insert. I don't know if anybody has ever had one of these, but it limits the size of your wood you could put in that fireplace. But I'm a stubborn man, and I shoved as much wood into that fireplace. I didn't want to have to keep, filling it up. And I shoved it in, and then I used the door to slam it as hard as I could to get that wood in there, and it broke the glass out. I thought, oh, that's terrible. So it happened to be a day of work that I was wearing nice clothes, and I stopped by the fireplace store and said, okay, this is the size glass I need, and I need to replace this. What's it going to cost? And I got great service. I walked through the door like, hey, how you doing, sir? Glad you're here, and oh, that's the size you need. I got it. I'll get it right for you. And they even gave me some free little stripping to put around it to make sure that it's sealed right. And they told me exactly how to do it. It was an unbelievable amount of service. Well, you would think that I would learn from that experience, but all it did is embolden me to be reckless. And I did it again later that winter, only a couple months later. But it happened to be that I broke it out on a Friday night. So the next Saturday, I'm in scrubby, dirty clothes. That's what I was going to do, yard work anyway, so I could wear whatever. So I go to the same fireplace store, same staff. But now I'm in scrubby clothes. I couldn't even get anybody to serve me. And when I finally got somebody to look at me, they said, oh, we don't do that. But you did 2 months ago. And all that was different was what I was wearing. So we encourage our men and women, when you go put in your application, let's dress up. Let's look nice. Yes, we can judge society. We can point fingers. We can do all that, but that's not going to help us any. You might as well go in and look nice and get the job and then complain about it. Isn't that much better? At least you have that paycheck to take care of that opportunity to live a successful life. So we have them dressed for success. And I'll tell you another story about a young man who we have our at a work group program. So you ever have work that needs to be done around your house? We have a team that we can send out to help out with that. And one of our guys did that. He worked out at Bacone College for about a week. And he was just doing yard work, nothing really taxing, but he did this work, got a paycheck from that, and used that to buy work boots for the job he's doing right now, which he would have lost his job if he didn't have the right work boots. He had to have steel-toed boots. They were specially made. Worked beautifully. Clothes make a big difference. I was sick, and you visited me. Now, when you work with people who have been living on the streets, people who are in poverty, illness happens a lot, whether it's from lack of nutrition. Sometimes it's just from being around other sick people. You get sick, and I don't like to go to the hospital. There's all these sick people there, and I don't know, I get sick, and I don't want to deal with that, but I will do it because God's called me to do it. And I'm sure your pastors had to visit people in the hospital, and you pray for people, and you're like, man, this place, I wouldn't want to be here if I didn't have to. But you come there because you love. But there's another illness that we experience in our community, and that's called addiction. And addiction is devastating to families. So every Monday night we have our Doorways of Hope service where it's focused on those who are in addiction, wanting recovery. We have small groups, a large group, and we will pray for you through your addiction. We'll celebrate those who are successful. And I want to tell you about one man that I met a year and a half ago named Edward. Now, we live out in Park Hill out near Tahlequah, and I go to the day center there, and I'm working in there, and Edward was always drunk. And so drunk he couldn't have a conversation. He was wobbly, and I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, man, I want to help you. I tell him about the mission. I said, we got a program for that. We can help you out. And he said, oh, yeah, I'll be there. And I kind of knew, well, I'm probably not going to see him. And he was living out in the woods back behind the Lutheran church there, and he was kind of almost proud of that. I'm surviving out here. I'm strong. I can do this. Well, about a month ago, he showed up at the mission sober. And he's part of that program right now, and I will kid you not, I could not recognize him. I'm looking at him, you look familiar. You kind of look like this guy that I know. But he's different. And he's confident. He's strong. God is changing him. See, our program isn't going to heal anybody. It's Jesus who's going to heal them. We're going to introduce them to Jesus who's going to do all that work. So if you know anyone, and the other side of this is that we have families. I lost an aunt to addiction. I lost an uncle to his addiction. And it breaks my heart to think our family didn't know how to help them. We wanted to help, but I think mostly what we did is we enabled them to continue down their road. Well, I would wish I knew what I know now. So we have an education program for that, so you can come to our Monday night services and learn more about that. I was in prison, and you came to me, and I've already alluded to our felon reintegration program. It is a tough gig. It's tough when you have a criminal record in your past. But we want to love them and care for them. And I'll tell you a little secret that most people don't seem to understand. Most of them are not violent felons. That's only like 1% of those who are violent felons. And even the one that was in our class that did have a violent felony on his record, you wouldn't have known it by talking to him. Until he told me at the end of the class, he said, oh, by the way, you should probably know. You do what? No, who he was before was violent. Who he was before he knew Christ was terrible. Who he was before Christ was devastating, but he is a new creation. Yet when he came to that class, he still needed healing from society. And he has received that because of people like you supporting the Gospel Rescue Mission. The important part of this whole passage is this, though. Though they come in, they look like Edward. Though they look like people in their addiction, though they look like people with a criminal record, though they look like all those people, really it's Jesus coming in there. And so you're not going to be supporting me personally. You wouldn't be supporting Gospel Rescue Mission, this big entity. You're supporting Jesus himself through any of these things that you might do. And I'm going to give you some options, some other ways that you can serve. And we're doing an event this year called the Ding Dong Dash. And your pastor's looking around for people, and maybe even someone might be you, so you might want to whisper to them. But people who don't usually ask for help around Christmas. We've got plenty of people who can help out those who are always asking for help. But what we're going to do is we're going to bless some people who don't usually ask for help. And your pastor's already committed to 7 laundry baskets full of cleaning supplies, of different things that people need you can't buy with food stamps. We have other organizations that are blessing us with food of hams, turkeys, baskets of all the turkey, Thanksgiving sort of things. And then with this form that I've sent out, that we're going to get Christmas presents for the kids of those families. And then we're going to look for people to sneak up, leave it on their porch, ring the bell, and run like crazy. And the goal is to not get caught blessing somebody. That's vandalism at its very best. And here I am encouraging the church to do it. So any part you want to play in that is beautiful. Now, November 21st is our Thanksgiving meal. And typically, this is how I got to meet your pastor. Was we were putting this event together, and he called me and said, hey, the Muskogee Ministerial would like to support that event. And that's how I got to meet him. And he reminds me of a guy I was good friends with in Washington State, so we hit it off pretty well, pretty quickly. But November 21st, we're going to have a 5-star meal for the men and women who are experiencing poverty. Those taking the Bridges Out of Poverty class, the men and women staying at the mission. We go to the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame, and we have fancy dishes, tablecloths, napkins, the fancy 5-star meal. And then people in our community will serve them the meal at their table and keep filling their plate, keep bringing them beverages. Meanwhile, on the stage is playing classical music, big band music. It's a 5-star fancy night out. And you can be part of that by either serving, cleaning up, doing dishes, or actually just loading up the plates so the servers can take it out. great opportunities there. We also have some food needs there as well. So if you're interested, you can email me. My contact's on our website as well. Now, we do meals all year long, so you don't have to wait just for Thanksgiving and Christmas to do this. You can do it all year long. You contact me. We'll get you scheduled in for that. And another way you could serve is just by showing up and hanging out with the men and women at the mission. I read a study that says we become like the people we hang out with. So look carefully who you're hanging out with. I surround myself, they say the top 5 people. So I figure Father, Son, Holy Spirit, my wife, and then one other. And so I got to watch out for that one other. But I hang out with those. So who are you hanging out with? Well, these men and women are only hanging out with people who are in their addiction, people who only know poverty, who only experience that or have not finished their high school diploma. If that's all they're hanging out with, what are their chances of growing out of that? If they're only hanging out with non-believers, what are they going to become like? Well, we need the men and women to come and just hang out with the men and women who are staying there. And you can contact us. We'll put you in with the men's group or the women's group. And we try to separate that out to keep everything safe and healthy. But just hang out with them. Say, hey, this is what life can be like. And listen to their stories. Get to know them. Because when you get to know them, they're no longer just that addict. They're no longer just that bum. No longer just that whatever label you might want to put on them. All of a sudden, they're Jimmy and Johnny and Edward and Susie or whatever their name is. You get to know them and impact their lives. And the final way I'll share today is we're looking for people to share financially with us for the next 3 years. A 3-year pledge saying, I will support this Gospel Rescue Mission effort so we can move to our new facility. We're going to almost double the number of men we could serve and triple the number of women we could serve. And probably 3 times as many people serving meals to, double our chapel services. All those things are things we can do at our new location. And if you're interested, I can give you a tour of that facility, show you around so you can see what you're investing in. Because truly, this is an investment into the kingdom of God, not a donation. So Jesus says this, when you did it to the least of these, you did it unto me. And I hope that when we look at what Jesus did for us, what he sacrificed on the cross for you and for me, that we'd be willing to give a little bit of ourselves, to experience his kingdom on this earth as quickly as we possibly can.